Road Rants, Episode 8. Get off the high horse of drugs are bad. Yes, drugs are bad. You should be mad at the people who are giving her the drugs, not mad at her for taking them or believing them, because she is suffering and she is in desperation. And somebody told her this will help. What would you do in a similar circumstance? Don't tell me you wouldn't accept help. Welcome to Road Rants Radio. I'm Frank Sardella, and I'm your host of this show, where I get on my soapbox and rant about stuff that's going to help you expand into your community and expand your profession. Get ready for a bit of tough love and learning. Join me now. Road Rants, yep, here I am again. Persistent, aren't I? I'm still here. Did you think I was going to go away? Did you think I was just exaggerating? You know I wasn't exaggerating, right? When I said I'm not going anywhere, I'm going to keep ranting. Well, today I'm going to rant, and I want to rant about something very interesting to me because it's something that I used to rant about that I no longer rant about, but now I'm going to rant about people ranting about it because I have overcome it, and I want you to overcome it as well. And in addition to that, right from the field, right from an in-the-trenches experience just yesterday at a corporate screening with someone I met, I have a story to share with you that exemplifies the entire thing. And this is going to be a unique episode of Road Rants because it's going to end up somewhere where you wouldn't expect a rant to end up. Now, I know it's tough love, and I know we always learn something, and we always come away with a message, but this one's pretty deep-seated in purpose, in just the true essence of what we're all here to do. And it's interesting because this is a story about an appointment that I did not book, about someone who did not want to come in, about someone who was outright resistive, and for lack of a better term, kind of ridiculous, and a little bit condescending, off-putting, sarcastic, rude, and for lack of a better term, who yanked my chain. But I'm going to tell you for the first time, this chain didn't get yanked because I came out of this thing like a champion, and the reason I came out of it like a champion is because of how I handled it and what the long game is, what the long-term view of this thing is, and how it fits into what we're trying to do here. But make no mistake, it's still a rant, and I intend to take it to term. So let me tell you about this story and this person that I met yesterday. I was at a screening venue that I go to often. A couple of times a year I go to this venue. It's very, very interesting venue. It is a corporate agency that governs artistic people. And it's all artists that they govern and manage and help. And I did my usual screenings. We were actually doing a massage day there, and I did my usual screening bit. And for those of you who know me, the true screening process, the lifetime patient ladder, all these things that I developed over the years, I use 100% all the time myself. I don't teach anything that I don't do myself in the trenches. And I was out there playing that game yesterday. But this girl saw me coming a mile away. Not in terms of I was trying to just sales pitch people. I don't have slick scripts. I genuinely handle people to shift their view of things enough to get them to take action, to take a next step, preferably a desired step that I and the doctor would like them to take. And it's a different step than you might think, because I don't sell chiropractic when I go out there. What I sell is a shift of view where the person wants to now see what chiropractic has to offer them in terms of answers, not solutions. And I won't get into that. If you want to get deep into that, please reach out and contact me. I'll have my contact information at the end of this episode. But suffice to say, I was doing my normal screening on her, had her fill out the survey, and the first thing that I noticed about her survey was she was 20-something years old and had checked off migraine headaches. As, interestingly enough, all people there just about that I screened yesterday, and I probably screened a good 15 to 18 people, had migraine headaches. I was shocked at how many people had migraine headaches there. But this particular one threw me for a loop just for a second. I didn't get off my game, but I didn't see her coming. And it was interesting to me because I didn't even know that I wasn't in a ranting mood about this particular subject anymore, that this particular thing didn't piss me off anymore until it happened yesterday. And this is why I want to rant about it a little bit today. So this girl sat with me, and the first thing I did was bring up the migraine headaches. Now, I got into my screening method, and I broke the ice a little bit with her. Had some discussions, told her that I work with a chiropractor, and did she know what chiropractic was and whatever. And she was the typical rigid, here's the deal. And she just had this attitude, and she was just going right into her migraine headaches, and she was going to tell me exactly why it was okay for her to have migraine headaches. So she technically went off on a bit of a rant, and that threw me for a loop. I didn't see this coming. And I'm very, very perceptive. I've been doing this a long time. I screened thousands of people, and I did not see her coming. So that'll just give you a little bit of an idea of what I was dealing with yesterday. And this is what she said to me. Now, I'm going to give you a direct quote. Hang on to your seat. Maybe if you're standing, sit down. Because in all my years, I've had similar to this, but I've never had this level of what? And this is what she said. I want you to know, regardless of what you do, I am on medication for my migraines, and I like the medication, and I like what it does, and I like how things are, and I'm totally fine with having migraine headaches and taking this medication for them. And I'm completely satisfied with that, and my life is great. Now, you may think that I'm adding a little bit of energy to that I'm actually exaggerating the attitude with which I delivered that line, which I may be paraphrasing a bit from memory, but I can tell you this, the attitude was the same. This was the most rigid person I've ever met in my entire existence. And at this taping, I've been in chiropractic 23 years. I have never seen anything like it, and I have never had anyone say those words to me with that degree of conviction. Now, she was condescending a little bit, and there was a little bit of sarcasm implied, and a little bit of yanking my chain, but this was not the typical person who's trying to challenge you on chiropractic. Couldn't care less about chiropractic. So she wasn't even anti-chiropractic. She was anti-do anything else but take drugs for her migraines, and went so far as to say she was happy about it. Now, if that doesn't piss you off a little bit, I don't know what will. And that's the rant part of our show today. Because that was the ridiculousness of the entire situation. That was the shock. I always say there's nothing that can shock me anymore. This shocked me, and it threw me for a loop. However, it was how I handled her that really proved to me that this is no longer an issue for me when people do this at a screening, and it got me to have a few realizations. And what was great is I had a live training scheduled with a very fine group about an hour after the event at that chiropractic office, and we had a training, and I actually based the training on what today's Road Rant is all about, because I really felt it was a great point to be made. We had a good example to base it on, and there was a lot to be learned from it. And I want to share that with you broadly. And hopefully you'll get a little inspired by it, because it was actually a very inspiring meeting I had afterwards. And here's what occurred. Number one, I want to tell you how I handled this with her. The first thing that I did is I didn't argue her out of it. I didn't try to argue with her that she was satisfied. Now, I will admit I was a little surprised. I had a knee-jerk reaction to react to what she said. And that's a little bit outside of what I like to do, but actually it served to give her a little shocker back, and it had me weigh in. I got up into her weight class. The bell went off and round one was ready to go, but I wasn't going to argue her out of it. But I did give it back to her a little bit by saying, well, okay then, I guess you have your solution. And I said it almost exactly like that. And I just let her have it. Not let her have it like let her have it. I let her have that. I let her have that she wanted to have medication and that she was happy with it and she didn't want to make any changes. That was the number one thing I did I knew I wasn't going to be able to penetrate with someone like that. I knew I wasn't going to get her signed up that day. There's no way she would cook in 5 minutes, even with my best work on my best day. And yesterday was a best day. I would have never gotten her signed up. So I went in on her, first of all, delivered a return blow and said, wow, I guess you have your solution. There it is. Okay then. Now, I didn't make it okay for her. I didn't tell her that was a good solution, but I also didn't yank it away from her. And that's the point that I want to make. Now, my client actually brought something up in the group session after that is actually a very interesting way of putting it. And he was talking about how he always thinks about when he hears from somebody of how many medications they've had or how many surgeries they've had or whatever, and all the ridiculousness that he hears. What he thinks of is not how pissed off he is, but he thinks of, wow, what kind of a situation was that person in that led them to take this drastic of a measure? What was that like? What did they feel like? And he hit it right on the head. He was tracking right along with this because that is so true. And I added to that, had I argued with her or tried to sell her off of the medication at that point, I would have given her back every degree of how she felt before she went on it, before she made the decision to do it. That girl made the decision to do that out of desperation. Now, when somebody's in desperation, imagine the condition they're in. What kind of shape are they in at that point? They are in terrible shape. So if you take away the only thing that's keeping them from being in that terrible shape, you're just putting them back there. You might as well punch her in the face at this point. And if you wanted to punch her in the face, because of her attitude and how she did it, you're doing the equivalent of arguing her out of it right now. It's not time to argue her out of it. She's that steadfast in it. What would make her that steadfast? Does she think I'm a jerk? Has she been sold down the river before? Well, I'm sure on migraine headaches, she probably in desperation went from doctor to doctor to doctor, and probably has been sold down the river before. And these drugs don't work, I guarantee you, as well as she said they do. So she's been sold down the river on that. And here I am, just another person to sell her down the river. So the first thing I did was I told her, have it. Keep doing it. You're satisfied with that. It's solving the problem for you. Good for you. You found a solution. Great. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about where we went after that, because I let her know, I said, look, first of all, did you know chiropractors work with migraine headaches? She said, no, I didn't know that, but she was still rigid. And I said, I just want to let you know, A, that they do, and B, that they have a very good track record. I've been doing this 23 years now, and I've seen some utter miracles. I've seen people drastically reduce them and whatever. However, I want to let you know, I'm not promising you that a chiropractor is going to get rid of your migraine headaches. There are a lot of things that can cause them. There are a lot of factors involved, and I would be remiss to tell you that you could get rid of them through it. So I'm not here to tell you that. And also, I just want you to know up front, I'm not recommending that you go to a chiropractor. So I let her off the hook right off the bat, and her guard went down just enough for me to get in the next part. And the next part is what I want to share with you, because I think you need a dose of this, and I think you'll find other areas where this applies. Now, the next thing that I told her is this. What she should understand is two things. Number one, now this is not exactly secret, but this is part of what I give in the True Screening Process training program that I have. It's my unique program. It's based on my personal experience with thousands of prospects and getting them sent to chiropractic offices and getting them the help they deserve and making lifetime patients, okay? It's from that process. That's where this came from. And I'm going to share a little bit of it with you right now. And I let her know 90%, and you guys, I fully believe this. I don't know statistically what it is. I don't know what you think it is, but I'm going to tell you from my viewpoint as a patient and as somebody who's worked in chiropractic for the longest time and who understands innate intelligence and energy flow and subluxation and all that stuff. As someone who understands from that level, I believe 100% what I tell someone like this. And what I told her is 90% of what chiropractors do is diagnostic in nature. It's dedicated to tracing back the symptoms to a true source of the problem. And having found that true source, it only becomes a 10% effort to handle it because you're now handling the correct thing, the truth. And I want you to think about that. I want you to think about what you do. I'm willing to bet you think 90% of what you do is when you deliver that adjustment, when you release that innate intelligence. And yes, that's 90% of the result that you get, but it's not 90% of what you do. What is the reason why you were able to do what you do? It's because of the investigation that you do beforehand. You would never touch a patient without doing an investigation, without doing an examination and a consultation and a history, and looking at x-rays or MRIs or whatever the evidence is that you've collected. You would do that investigation and come to that conclusion. That's 90% of the effort, and you can't convince me otherwise. It's 90%, and I let her know that. So right away, I let her know I wasn't offering her a therapeutic thing. I was offering her something that no one's offered her. The second thing that I let her know is this, and I know this will resonate. Now, I want to preface this by saying what I was doing now is I was arming her with things to walk away with that will make her think. Not just some superficial data that I got from the internet or from the American Chiropractic Association or this or that or the other thing and trying to prove my case. No. I was trying to arm her with things that will make her start wondering and thinking. That's what's going to turn someone like that around. That's what's going to turn it from an argument that pisses you off into somebody who will eventually give you a call or become a patient or inquire or want to know more or do more research or think outside the box or. So what I was doing at this point was arming her with things that will make her think. So what I told her next was based on the fact that 90% is dedicated to finding the true source of the problem, and that if you take a solution like a medication or this or that or the other thing, and it relieves it, but then it comes back again that you haven't found the true source, based on that, it sounds to me like no one she's seen so far has given her that answer. And I quickly moved on from that subject because I wanted to leave her with that thought. I don't want her walking away from me thinking, I handled him. There's another salesman that I got off my back. No, I want her walking away going, wow, I got him off my back. Wow, that thing he said about not finding the true source of the problem. That's going to make her wonder. So I made her wonder. And I'm also leaving the door open. Let me make a point here before I get to the final point of where I went with her on this. And that point is this, that when you are screening somebody or talking to them, especially for the first time, that you want to leave that door open to continue the conversation with the person. You're not going to finish the conversation in 5 minutes. See some of my earlier road rants. We've gone over this before, but I will tell you repeatedly that that's true. What we're trying to do is leave the door open. You must leave the door open if you want future communication with this person. You must leave that door open. But if you argue with her, if you try to take away her right to have that medication, if you try to say you know better than she does, if you try to force feed her information that's different from the information she has, you are closing that door, because what have you made yourself but an adversary, an opponent, an enemy at that point? And what do people do with opponents or adversaries or enemies? They avoid them, they fight them, they rebel against them. They certainly don't listen to them. They're certainly not going to follow their orders or consider them an expert. They're going to consider them ridiculous, a fool, an idiot. So to leave the door open, you need to follow what we've covered so far. So I gave her something to think about when she walked away so that it would eventually shift. And here's what I left her with, because now I want to ensure that she's going to think about this and look at it. And I can tell you right now, I have 100% confidence that even now she's thinking about it and she's watching. And this is what I left her with. I said, there are 3 conditions that people find themselves in, especially when it comes to things like this. They're either getting better, they're staying the same, or they are declining. Those are the 3. And to tell you the truth, if they're staying the same, then they're probably over time going to deteriorate or decline. Let's face it, you in the chiropractic profession know this above all else. Deteriorations happen over time. They seem like they're not changing, but they actually are deteriorating little by little. It's just not noticeable. They're in such small increments that you don't see it. So I told her there are 3 conditions, and this is what I want you to watch out for. Now, just so you know, I had an offer there, and I don't really make offers at screenings, but I had an offer where she can consult with the doctor, and I had an actual little card that said that, and invited her for that, and I think, maybe a massage or something, and I handed her the card, and I said, listen, this is what I want you to do going forward. I'm not going to suggest, that you get chiropractic care, because that's not my recommendation at this point. In fact, if I were to make a recommendation to you, it would be to see the doctor, to have him do an evaluation on you, because actually getting this checked out is really what you need to do from that standpoint, because no one's given you that answer yet. But because you're happy with where you're at with the medication, you see, I reminded her of it because I know that wasn't 100% true what she told me, that she's happy with it. I guarantee you she's not happy with it. It's not 100% foolproof. And when she gets those headaches and she gets the side effects from the medication and her life is not good. And I know this, even if it is good, I've been through that dwindling spiral before, and I know she's in for quite a storm. If not now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it will occur. So I let her know that. And I said, look, medication can be a solution on the short term, but I'm just letting you know on the long term, deterioration can happen. I'm talking from personal experience. It happened to me, and I've seen it happen to a lot of patients. It's not a permanent solution. So I just want you to know this, that I want you to keep an eye on it, and I'm going to give you a measuring stick. There are 3 conditions you'll find yourself in. You're either improving, you are staying the same, or you are getting worse. And the first condition, if you're improving, whatever you're doing, do more of it. You're doing it right. It must be right because you're getting better. I said that knowing that the medication was not going to make her condition better. It's not. Now, you regulate the time. I let her regulate the time. You regulate the time. A month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, whatever it is, I want you to keep an eye on this, and I want you to monitor whether it's getting better, whether it's staying the same, or whether it's getting worse. And if it's any of the 2 latter conditions, I want you to take this card and I want you to call the number on it. I want you to let them know exactly who you are, what company you work for, and that you met me at a health fair and that I said you can come in and get evaluated. And I want you to take us up on that evaluation. Now, I want to remind you, I'm not recommending that you get chiropractic care. This is just for you to be able to get that answer that no one's been able to give you. And I'm going to give you that, and I'm going to send you over to have your massage today. Okay? And I want you to know it was a pleasure meeting you. I was perfectly nice to her. I wasn't sarcastic. I wasn't condescending. I wasn't defensive. And this was a little bit surprising to me too, because I never had anything to this degree. And I'm like, wow, this is a sign of real growth. You know that instinct when somebody's being like condescending or sarcastically sweet or whatever it is, and they're yanking your chain and you just want to give it to them back? I didn't have 1 ounce of that yesterday. And I felt really good about what I was doing because I gave her something no one else did. Her reaction proved to me that she's been in similar arguments before. She's going to remember my reaction. She's going to know the door is still open. And whether she likes it or not, she's going to notice when it gets worse. She's going to notice if it's not getting better and staying the same. And she's certainly not going to notice it getting better. But if she does, I told her, more power to you, do more of what you're doing. But at that point, it's probably because she started using less of the medication. So I'm not worried about that happening. But I know that I can have the patience to play the long game. But if you try to play the short game with these people, this is what I need to get through your noggins. If you try to play the short game, you are not going to get anywhere. You are closing the door on any chance of any kind of salvation for this person. You are debarring them from a wellness lifestyle that you desperately want them to have. And you're not doing it maliciously, which is what the biggest tragedy of all is. You're not doing it maliciously. I wasn't doing anything maliciously in the past when I've made that same error myself. Yesterday, this was coming from my desire to help her. But sometimes you have to let things be where they are. And you have to accept it and get off the high horse of drugs are bad or whatever. Yes, drugs are bad. You should be mad at the people who are giving her the drugs, not mad at her for taking them or believing them, because she is experiencing symptoms. She is in suffering and she is in desperation. And somebody told her this will help. What would you do in a similar circumstance? Don't tell me you wouldn't accept help. If you were in an excruciating amount of pain in the emergency room of the hospital, whether you believe in drugs or not, you might just beg for morphine. Okay? So try to have some understanding of that and realize that if you let it go for now, it's not sacrilege against the profession and against your core purpose. You're playing the long game to finally get this person. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a shocker. You might have heard this maybe in an earlier episode of What Worked for Patients, and I'm not going to apologize if you already heard it because you can't hear this story enough. I relayed this story to my group yesterday in the training I did after the screening. And here's an interesting story. I used to be in the corporate health fair business before anybody was doing the business. It was me and one other company in New York City back in the mid-90s and to the late 90s. And I built up a large company where I was going into corporations and I was setting up health fairs. And that spawned off of me consulting chiropractors on marketing, on screenings, on, whatever it was that I was helping them with. And I found that most of them wanted corporate events. So I just sort of created a company that gave them that in. We didn't have social media and cell phones and whatever. So I had to pound the pavement, be armed with my Amex card, take HR people out to lunch, which, by the way, I have to tell you was brilliant back in the mid to late 90s when people didn't have cell phones and texting and social media to sort of be distracted. And you can actually get them out of the office. And when you sat them down for lunch, they were not contactable, which was great. And every single lunch would come away with an event scheduled with that company. But let me not get off track here. The point is this. I was one of the only game in town, and no one was doing this yet. Now it's a whole industry. It's a cutthroat industry. There's all these companies popping up and competing with each other and whatever that are delivering these corporate events. But I was delivering killer corporate events, and then it happened. My first fall season of health fairs, because this thing skyrocketed very quickly, and it was in the spring season that it skyrocketed. And when I got to my first fall, I started getting the requests coming in for, you ready for this? I think you know what I'm going to say. What does every corporation want in the fall for their employees? That's right, flu shots. Now, I'm on my chiropractic high horse. I'm only a couple of years outside of having an utter miracle that got me off of all medication. No more antibiotics annually. No more medicine for anything. Totally living a wellness lifestyle the way you guys wanted me to, right? I was on my chiropractic high horse. I was on a higher horse than you are. I was like arguing with people about getting flu shots and vaccines and all these different things. And what I didn't realize is I was closing doors. I was creating adversaries, opponents, because these people, flu shots in some cases are all they had. Advil in some cases is all they have. Their primary care physician is all they have. Their family doctor is all they have. That's all they have, especially when they're in desperation. And here's what happened. I met these requests with not really a chip on my shoulder, but I let them know that we don't do flu shots. I just made it policy and I was like, okay, that's it. We don't do flu shots. I'm just going to tell them that. I'm going to come out and say it. Well, guess what? I lost out on a lot of these corporations that I could have had, but I had so many, I didn't really care for a time. And then one day or one evening, I was sitting there and it hit me. And I said, those companies right now found someone who will deliver flu shots to their employees. Their employees are getting flu shots, and my chiropractors are not in the event to unplug them from the matrix. And that's when it hit me that I have to play a longer game. I have to keep the door open. Now think about this. Before you get down on me for doing this, before you stop listening to this show and get down on me for this, you need to think about this for a second. Think about that door closed, door open. What's door closed? You made an adversary, an opponent. They will never, ever listen to you. And by listen to me, I mean, if they listen to me, my chiropractor will get into the event and will start unplugging people from the matrix. And even if those people they meet at the health fair get the flu shot that year, they're going to come back the next year flu shot free because that doctor will have unplugged them. So that is the long game, folks. That's the open door approach that I'm talking about. So you know what I did? I started aligning with companies that could provide the flu shots, and we provided the flu shots. And I felt good about it because guess what happened? I got a lot more events. I started getting my chiropractors in there, my chiropractors who were under my tutelage, I was helping enlighten people and get them unplugged and get them signed up and get them into the office and get them under care and get them leading a wellness lifestyle, educating them within an inch of their life. That is what happened as a result of providing those flu shots. And that is an extreme example of applying this open door, closed door concept. And that's what you need to consider. That's what you need to consider. So I want you to understand what you're up against when you're up against someone like I screened yesterday. This girl, I have to tell you, somebody who 20 years ago would have just really, really gotten to me, who I might have argued with or who I might have been sarcastic with or rude to. I really cared about her yesterday. I really felt for where she was at, and that's where I want you to end up. You need to take heed of this example. Stop getting pissed off at people and start realizing where they are, what kind of shape they're in, what condition they're in. Because they're in pretty poor condition, people. And no one else is going to do this. If you let them go, you argue with them, you make an enemy out of them, what's the alternative? What is going to happen? Fast forward 10 years, 20 years. You've done this to people. You've gotten them to be a little fearful and say, what do you think is going to happen 10 years down the road? What do you think is going to happen 20 years down the road? But did you ever stop to think that if they don't go under care, how that puts that responsibility on your head of what happens to them 10 years, 20 years down the road? Because I got news for you. It's on your head if you don't penetrate. So you have to have some patience when you penetrate. And if you can have the patience to do this and play that long game and hang in there, I promise you, you will get them. I don't care if it takes 2 years. This girl is thinking and watching. And even if it's 10 years down the road, when everything comes tumbling down and the shit hits the fan with this girl, she's going to remember the conversation she had with me. She's going to remember what I told her to do, and she's going to act on it. And it's all because I had the patience and the decency and the responsibility to go that far with her and have the patience to play the long game. And that's what it's all about, folks. That's what you need to do. I want to see you doing that. I don't just want to see you doing it. I want to hear from you. I want you to write to me and tell me how you handled it. This is what I want you to do right now. I want you to, when you finish with this episode, I want you to sit down and I want you to think of your 5 most problem patients. The 5 people you just couldn't get through to, whether they were leads who never came in for a day one, whether they were patients who dropped out before they achieved correction, no matter who they were, think of those 5 cases, and I want you to think of how this would apply to them. I want you to think of what you could have done differently, and I want you to think what you can do now to salvage it. And I want you to salvage those 5 cases, not just one. We've got a big job to do here. Do 5. And I want to hear from you because I know you're going to be successful if you do this. Write to me, frank@screeningexperts.com. Write to me and let me know how well you did with this. And by all means, write to me if you have more questions or you want to know more. Now, if you'd like to know more about the true screening process and the lifetime patient ladder, I emphatically implore you to contact me. I will be glad to enlighten you on what they are and what they mean. What you got today was a nice little chunk of it, I can tell you that. That was a treat, and that's a gift from me to you, because I know that's a gift from me to the world. Because through your hands, I know that's going to make vast improvement. So I'm leaking a little bit to you right now. That is my guarantee to you that I'm behind you. But you give me a call and I will let you know what's out there to be known and how you can change your game in practice today. Immediately, with the next person that you see. Immediately. Contact me and I will let you know. Get those 5 patients down, find out. Please subscribe, listen, and download. Recommend this to your buds in practice, your buds back from school, all that stuff. Get them listening too. This is for everybody. This is so we can make a planetary impact with this stuff, folks. Please, please do that. And by all means, remember those conditions and remember the open and closed door. And listen to this episode repeatedly. Make this your training episode. This is your big moment to go out there and make a huge impact. That's my rant for today. There will be other rants. I'm ready for it. You know I'm not going away. So I'm going to be here. So please tune in. Also, please visit willwork4patients.com. That's willwork4patients.com. That is our sister show. And it is the big kahuna interview show where we interview guests. We have long run episodes. They're not rants. I'm a lot nicer over there. It's not tough love, but there's just as much, if not more, to be learned there. So please subscribe, download, and listen as well, and share. Please share all your successes with me. Please go to iTunes and rate both shows. 5 stars would be great, but and maybe write some reviews about some of your thoughts or some of the wins you've had, applying this stuff. I love hearing that stuff, but I especially love hearing it directly. So please do reach out, frank@screeningexperts.com. That's it for today's Road Rant. I will be back with another one very soon. So stay very closely tuned to the podcast because it's coming at you like lightning. I promise you that. Thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time for another episode of Road Rants Radio. Be good.
Road Rants Radio is a broadcast wellness